Financial Fix. I'm your host, Teresa McGarry, and we are on our very first on-site interview here at Sage Restoration with Stephanie Sage. How you doing, Stephanie?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for coming to let me be your first live on somebody else's set.
Yeah,
show.
it's exciting.
Yes, I've gotten to know you quite well over LinkedIn, and we both are podcasters, and it's been fun to learn from you and all the stuff you've been doing.
And to learn from you as well. Yeah.
My little stage set here.
I know, I love it. You're giving me some great ideas here. I'm going to need to do something a little different too. Because my life is changing a whole bunch here with going through a divorce and getting my current house on the market so we can get rid of it. With my half of the equity, what I'm planning on doing is buying a house that's in foreclosure.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I sell the house, ideally I get all my money back,
Mm-hmm.
plus hopefully a little bit more.
Yeah.
And
especially if you buy a foreclosure,
yes,
you're hopefully going to get a good deal.
Although they probably haven't done a lot of maintenance, because if they
Mm-hmm.
had the money to do the maintenance, they probably would have paid the mortgage and not been in foreclosure.
Yeah,
or at least financially, that's what I would have done.
Yeah.
The whole topic of what do new home buyers need to be aware of is
really relevant.
Very relevant for me. The timing of this could not have been any better.
Well, that's awesome.
Perfect.
Well, and the big difference when you build a new home, you don't have those worries because it's brand spanking new, right? But
unless the builders mess up.
Well, yeah,
don't
even go there. That's a whole nother show.
We had some of those too. Yes.
Yeah. But then when you're buying, a home that's getting to be 20 or 30 years old, the older a home gets, the more problems that it's going to have because it just gets old like people do and has more wear and tear and problems.
Mm-hmm.
Or, if you buy a foreclosure, you're going to have situations where maybe obviously the people are having money problems and they aren't going to be taking care of the house like they should,
Yep.
So that could increase the things that you need to look for and be aware of.
Right. And as long as the house has good bones, the way I've heard it put, some of the other stuff can easily be fixed. But I know there's some things that are maybe a bigger undertaking to get fixed, like major foundational problems or something.
Yeah.
I would want to stay away from that.
Yeah.
But where do you want to start? Let's inside, outside. What kinds of things do I need to be looking for, or our viewers need to be looking for if they're
one thing I want to know is back in the day when, we started Sage almost 12 years ago, it was hard for me to get insurance-based work. And so I started calling on realtors, knowing that there was a need for mold inspections, testing, removal, odor control, things that hinder the purchase of a house. And so I always told realtors, don't pass up on a deal, or the buyers as well. Because there's not a house that you pretty much can't fix unless it's just falling down, dilapidated. That's a whole nother story. But your average home, even if it's in foreclosure, it's going to have things that are manageable, can be fixed, can be negotiated by the seller. Maybe they can pay part, the buyer pays part, whatever. Or we even accept money out of the loan closing proceeds. Like if you don't have the cash up front.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So we'll work with the title company, what have you. But the moral of it is, usually it's very fixable, but you have to be aware of what to look for. That's the main thing. And you're not a new home buyer. You've purchased before, but still you've never bought a house by yourself. But more importantly, if you're, a young couple and you're out buying your first home, a lot of times you have no idea what to look for and what can be expensive, especially like foundation issues.
Yeah. Those are scary.
Yeah, that can be really scary. And you go down and that's got big cracks in the walls of the basement or the floor. You can run into thousands and thousands of dollars, or probably even 20 or 30 grand.
Yeah, because if your foundation's cracked, then that, windows don't open right, doors don't close right,
water
cracks
seeps
down
in.
the walls. Yeah, water seeping in, which causes a slew of other issues.
Yeah.
Let's
start with the outside. So like number one, look at the driveway. You pull in, the driveway is all cracked. That's expensive. So, that's not really having to do with mold and things inside the house, but just an expensive, the driveway's in bad shape.
Yeah, the house I'm getting rid of, the driveway's in bad shape.
Yeah.
We power washed it one time and it just started chipping all up, and it's just gone from
Yeah.
there. And there's this one part where was it the skirt, the part at the end by the street, and then it comes down where you can actually feel the tires go up over because it's kind of sunk.
Need some mud jacking.
Yeah.
And that's another thing to look for. I probably can go on and on once you get me on a roll here. But yeah, and then you go to a front step and it's crooked and the steps are uneven, that's mud jacking. You don't have to have that done. That isn't, when I've done it in my own homes, it's not that expensive, but it still is probably several $1,000 fix. But yeah, you want to take a look at the home. What's the paint look like? Walk around the house. Is there peeling paint? Or more importantly, look at the windows. Because if that house has window rot, number one, there's high odds that water's getting in through the window seals and could be getting into the wall cavity where you could have mold growth in the walls. So, and then wood rot is very expensive to fix because the cost of lumber right now is insane.
That's what I've heard. I haven't priced any, but that's what I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah. So, definitely look for peeling paints, signs of wood rot. The roof, of course, that's super expensive. I mean, your realtor, whoever helping you, should be helping you along with all this. But you don't know what people know or don't know. So you need to be looking out for yourself because this is your biggest investment in your whole life for most people.
Right. And it should be an investment, not an expense.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Because you want to get something that you'll have some equity in and you can get some of your money back whenever you end up selling it to whoever's next that owns it.
For sure.
Yeah. And, they may not always go house shopping with their realtor. They may, go out on Sunday afternoon and just, drive around and see what open houses there are and go look. And so it's good for them to know what to look for even when they're out looking without their realtor.
Right. That's true. So once you look at those things, then I would also take a look at the landscaping. Because if people don't have the money to keep up on their landscaping, that can be a problem too, because if you have areas in the ground that kind of dip down where you should build your mulch or your dirt around your foundation, it should be built up to drain water away from the property. Because what happens, or look at the gutters. So let's say they have gutters full of debris and leaves. Water is going to free fall down because it can't drain out. And so when it free falls down like a waterfall along your house, it's going to pool in the ground. It's going to just build this little pool. And that water sits there and it's slowly going to seep and make its way into your foundation and down into your basement. And the same is true with your guttering. So you want to make sure that the gutters are draining water out and away from the foundation, because I don't know how many times we'll look around a house where people have water damage in their basement and they're missing like the whole bottom part of the gutter. It comes down on the house, but they don't have the other part of the
angle it away.
Angle it away, or the round black tubes that can drain water out and away from your house. So those are some things to definitely take a look at. And then I also tell people, well, I personally don't like the houses that have the stairs going down into the basement. Have you ever seen those? And then
from the outside?
Yeah, from the outside. And then there's a drain by the door. And a lot of times that drain gets clogged up with leaves and debris, and then water will make its way right into your basement, the door going into the basement. And another thing too is those egress windows, which by code have to be there if you don't have a walkout, because you have to have an escape route out of the basement from the bedroom.
That's like living room. If I had a window up high and then the window
it has a little
with a little ladder thing.
And so those sometimes have drains, sometimes they don't, but those can fill up with water as well. So, and you can't avoid those. And I would say there's nothing wrong with them, except that if in times of heavy rains, you're going to have to make sure that water's not building up in those windows.
What about snow and ice?
That doesn't seem to be as much of a problem, but I mean, if you get a lot of snow in there and it melts when the weather warms up, that could be a problem.
I was thinking like rain or snow, and then the temperature drops, and because it expands when it freezes into ice and bust your window, create cracks, whatever. And
Yeah, I mean, your house, if you have your heat on, I mean, I guess, we've never had a call about that, but that'd be something to ask maybe a builder or a window person, and then another thing too, a lot of times your insurance won't cover water that comes in from the windows or a door from the outside, like I just mentioned in that walk down kind of
Mhm.
area, stairway down to the back door in the basement, because they consider that flood water, above ground water. So there is a lot of things that you
Ooh, that's a
need to
good thing
think
to
about.
think about.
Mhm.
Yeah, because normal
Yeah.
homeowners insurance doesn't typically include flood.
Flood water. Mm-mm.
That's,
So you got to
that's
be
usually
careful of that
separate.
kind of stuff. And if you have a sump pump, you say, "Well, I think my sump pump failed." It's just like, do you have a sump pump too? It's just that's a whole nother thing we'll get down to look at when we talk about the inside of the house. So I want to mention one more thing about when you're walking around the exterior of a home is go stand in the backyard. And if this is a backyard where it's its elevation is where it's going down towards your house, your actual
Mhm.
yard, that's a problem, because when you have heavy rains, that water's all just going to go right into the back of your house. And if we have heavy storm rains, it has nowhere to go. And so it's going to make its way
Yep.
into your back door or into your foundation. And what you're going to have to do is spend thousands of dollars to make French drains that they basically create. I don't know how to personally do it, but some kind of drainage lines to catch that water and then drain it out away from your home. And then another thing to look for too is I call them the bad luck lots. And that's where your house is like the draining area of the neighborhood. So take a look around and you can kind of tell, like, those houses may be at higher elevations than yours, depending on how the development's laid out. But ultimately, what that means is all of the rainwater from their yards drain right into your yard. Yeah. And then you'll go swimming pool in your backyard.
We have the storm drain on one side of the driveway.
Yeah.
And the street light on the other.
Mhm.
Which was really funny because when we moved in, my mother-in-law was with us
Mhm.
when we first moved in, and she slept in the bedroom that was like above the garage.
Uh-huh.
And I got chewed out the next day for leaving that light on all night. Trying to explain to her that was a street light. I can't turn it off. And, we just moved in. We didn't have any curtains up or anything,
Lord.
but it was funny. I got in trouble for that, leaving that street light on.
The things you don't think about. When you're buying
The
a house,
easement
building a house. Yeah.
that was like right behind the storm drain goes right between our property line and the next folks. So it's created a lot of erosion. And we actually had my older daughter, she was late grade school, I think. She came in and was telling us that some big animal had dug this hole in our yard. Well, come to find out that there has to be a sidewalk on one side, but only has to be on one side. So it stops like halfway between our house and the next house. It doesn't even go driveway to driveway. It's
Wow.
because they went halfway around the cul-de-sac and then stopped midway between our houses. It's just like, why?
Yeah.
But
They ran out of concrete or something.
but it had all eroded out, and it had a big sinkhole there.
Mhm.
And it was, I don't know, at least 6 foot deep,
That's
5 foot wide.
dangerous.
It was. And then when you look down in there, the pipe coming out of it, there was nothing.
Mhm.
So I don't know, it disintegrated or something. I don't know.
Oh my God.
But of course, nobody was paying any attention to it until they put up this orange fencing around it so that they would, keep everybody away from it. And they didn't want people to come gawking at it. Well,
that caused it to
actually
gawk at it more. Hello.
Well, yeah, because there was all kinds of kids and a lot of them were boys. So where are they going to go?
Yeah, let's
the
go
orange
play in the dirt.
construction fence to look at this sinkhole.
And they'll be, I dare you to jump down in there.
But still, when they re-poured that sidewalk, you can see where it's sunk down from where the top of the storm drain is. It's like, okay, so I went out, I took some paint and I went out and I painted a line on it, which I should have done a much finer line because it's really hard to tell exactly, to find out, because that was something we were kind of squabbling about is it sinking again or did it just sink some and it's staying there? So like, are we going to have another big sinkhole?
You're monitoring it.
Yeah. I mean, last thing I want to do is walk across the sidewalk and end up having it collapse or having him mowing the yard and have it just go right underneath, out from underneath it or something.
Yeah,
That would not be a good thing.
No.
So yeah, that where those easements are, where the
Mhm.
storm drain is,
Yeah.
that's a good clue as to whether you're at the bottom of the hill or the top of the hill.
That's probably, there's your sign, right?
Yeah, there's your sign. I love that. I love it. There's your sign.
There's your sign. So then once you go inside, that's about all I can really think of right now as far as the exterior. And that's plenty to think about.
Anything about a sprinkler system or a fence that you would
Well, yeah.
suggest?
Well, yeah, if the fence is falling down, it's in bad shape, you're probably going to replace that. And that's not cheap. And then you just mentioned
Sprinkler system?
Sprinkler system. Yeah, that's something
Or
to
the
look
deck?
at. Oh, well, definitely the deck. If it's in bad shape, it may not even pass code. I don't know. But yeah, definitely. Or if it has a concrete patio, is it all cracking, chipping? Yeah, that's all things that, you need to take into consideration. Can you live with that? Will it even pass inspection? I mean, that's just stuff that, your realtor should be able to help you with, answer questions about that. Or you should always hire a home inspector, especially if you're a new home buyer. I know when the market gets crazy, like it has been over the last few years, where people are it's a feeding frenzy. People are paying more than what the house is even worth, and then they're waiving inspections. I mean, if you're a seasoned home buyer and you know what to look for, I wouldn't recommend it anyway, but if you're a new home buyer and you have no clue about what to look for, you can get into some serious upside down issues when you overpay for a property. And then you've got other issues that need to cost lots of money in repairs, and you didn't have the home inspected. You could be in a bad situation for several years until, your home appreciates in value. So it's just stuff to take into consideration. And once you go inside the home, immediately when you walk in, you should, if you smell mold, you should always trust your nose. Don't ever doubt your, sense of smell. You need to take a look around the home and look for signs of previous water damage. And so you want to take a look up at the ceilings. Is there stains in the ceiling? Cracks in the ceiling? You need to look at the walls to see if there's foundation settling type of cracks. You need to take a look at the baseboards, because if there's been like water coming in through like a window and it's getting down into behind the wall area, a lot of times there'll be swelling along that baseboard, or the paint's going to start kind of peeling. You need to look at the windows, the window sills, see if water looks like it's been coming in. You need to look in every area that has a lot of water, which would be, of course, your kitchen. You're going to want to look at if it has wood floors, look for signs of buckling of wood floors. That's where they're kind of like, they're uneven, or they're cupped, or they're going this way, especially by maybe the dishwasher, the sink, look around the refrigerator. Just, keep your eyes open.
Like in laundry room, bathroom.
Yes, bathrooms. Do you see like the vinyl, is that starting to peel up, like around the toilet, around where the bathtub is? Just use your common sense that, if you see materials that look like, when materials have been affected by water damage, they're going to start deteriorating unless they've been dried out properly. So just, look underneath the bathroom vanities, underneath the sink, look underneath the kitchen, because a lot of times you're going to see signs of previous water damage, especially underneath the kitchen sink. Like maybe the base flooring of that cabinet is all swollen, and you could see mold growing on it sometimes.
So what would you do about that? Just rip out the cabinets and put in new ones?
Yeah,
you need to fix where the water's coming in from, so you don't just get more damage. But
yeah, a lot of times we've been called in just to clean out the area underneath the sink, and so we may pull up that flooring and clean it really good for mold, and then they can replace that flooring in there. Some stuff is just an easy fix. You'd have to have some pretty major water damage from overhead normally to have your cabinets, taken out and everything like that. So I would just walk through the house, look for signs of carpet, like it's pulling back in the corners, or it just looks like it's been wet. And then go down into the basement. One of the first signs that I'm always suspicious of when I would do home mold inspections is, let's say you walk down into an unfinished basement, and number one, I'm always a little suspicious if they've painted the subfloor and the ceiling, okay? Because usually you're trying to hide something, unless it looks like they're doing it. Some people do try to like improve the looks of their unfinished basement aesthetically with paint, but I will tell you, I'm always a little suspicious when somebody has painted their unfinished basement walls and the subfloor, and all that, and wood framing up there with paint. I'm just saying, not all the time, but I'm going to take, yeah, it's just something to be aware of, because a lot of times, especially like in the old, like the old Leawood, Prairie Village, some of the houses in like Roland Park, Mission Hills, where we have these really old homes that have the stone basements. They're actually the stone. I mean, stone in itself is really semi-porous and holds water. So in a lot of these older homes, I mean, it's almost impossible to get away from having moisture down there, because it's just the nature of the materials in the basement. So, and you're going to get like sometimes effervescence that kind of looks like it could be mold. You can see kind of a white little film on it, and you actually have to do testing. We can do tape testing on those surfaces to actually say whether it's actually mold or not. But the whole point is that those are probably going to need some kind of cleaning off and on, or you definitely need to be running a dehumidifier down in basements like that, because they're just going to hold moisture.
We did, yeah. I remember in the house we grew up in, it was yeah, we had a dehumidifier running.
Well, and back to the point of painting, I mean, a lot of times if you buy a house in those areas with the old stone basements, I personally would go in and hire a company like Sage, or you could even do it yourself, just really clean the walls, the stone really well, and then let it thoroughly dry for, like, I would say a week, maybe put some air movement on it and put some dehues down there. And then you can go in with like an antimicrobial type of paint, okay, like a Kills. And then that will help kind of keep the moisture. Yeah, it does. And I can see, where people aren't necessarily trying to hide something, but you're trying to be preventative. Go in, and then it'll help keep that moisture, back into the stone and not coming in into the actual basement area will help. And then another thing you need to do in an unfinished basement is look up at the wood, wood framing, and look for, we use LED flashlights. And we'll just go along, try to hold the flashlight at an angle. And if you see like signs of white, kind of filmy looking stuff, or sometimes in some of these older basements, it can be kind of yellow and greenish in color. And odds are that probably is some form of mold growth. But you have to be careful with mold. You can't just say, I know for a fact something's mold, until, you can say, I assume that to be mold. It appears to be microbial growth, but until you actually have testing done, like a tape test, which is a little piece of tape that we put down on the surface, and then we send it to a lab, and then they analyze it for the types of molds and at what levels that mold is present. We can also do air testing as well, where we have a pump that we come in with a little cassette, and it pulls in the air from that area, and then we send it to a lab, and then they analyze it. But it's just a good way for you to get an idea, and especially if it does. Sometimes it smells moldy, and sometimes it doesn't. You can't always go by the sense of smell, because I've been in basements. I'm like, Lord, oh man, this place is so moldy, and the wood framing ceilings looks just full of mold. But the test will come back, it's not elevated. And you're like, how can that be? But sometimes it goes dormant. So mold in itself is a whole little funky niche of an industry, let me tell you. But it's just good to be aware of what you need to be looking for, and at least talk to your realtor about, bringing in a company that can do a mold inspection for you, mold testing, or what have you. But those are the things that I would look for in an unfinished basement. Look at the framing on the floor. Look for signs like if the wood framing it's got a lot of wood rot. It's discolored, or look at by the floor drain. You see like evidence of previous backups coming out of that drain. Look at the HVAC heating units. I would kind of look and see what kind of condition. Of course, that's your home inspector should be able to look at how well those are working. But just look and see if there's signs of water backup around those. If there's a sump pump, see if there's signs of water, or even worse, sometimes people will put like they want to create aesthetics in a basement, so they'll put build a box around the actual sump pump unit. And sump pumps aren't the prettiest things in the world. I mean, they're not pleasant to look at, but I will tell you, sometimes that's not such a good idea, because sump pumps hold water, and then now you're almost building like an incubator around it of wood, which is semi-porous. So it's really, good at growing mold. So here you've got, this wood little cabinet over basically a hole of water. To me, that you're just asking for mold growth. I mean, me personally, I don't recommend that, but I see that a lot. So you just need to go and probably check that and look for mold, clean up periodically. Or if you have, you go into like finished basements, do the same thing. Walk around looking at the baseboards. Look up at the finished ceiling. Do you see any staining? Trying to think what else we come across. Or if you come across the walkout that has the back door, going outside to the backyard, go out and it doesn't have the steps leading up to it. Does it have the drain there? Or just go outside that door, and I would look for signs of water damage, water intrusion, or if it has those egress windows, I would check to see if it's got drains in those window wells. Because if it doesn't have a drain, the water can fill up. And if it does have a drain, that's even better. But, you need to go out and periodically clean that out.
Yeah. So it doesn't get clogged up with the leaves and the dirt and everything else that's in there. Yep.
Yeah. Or if there's a bar down there, check out underneath the cabinet where the bar is, or the bathroom, check out the bathrooms. But those are some things that we definitely are going to go through and look. Just look for anything that just looks a little suspicious. Ask questions.
When we finished our basement, we put in a subfloor. So it's like the bottom layer is plastic with the circles are yay big, around feet on it, and then there was plywood. So when they lay carpet downstairs, they're like, oh, it's in a basement. We got to do. It's like no. Yes, it's in the basement, but it's on subfloor, so you're really laying carpet on wood, just like you would any other level. But last February, when everybody had pipes breaking, and we did have one pipe break in that bathroom because the way the insulation was, there was one of the pipes that was too exposed, and frequently when it would get that cold, we'd just run a space heater in that bathroom just to make sure. And my husband had turned the temperature down, and I had two space heaters. I was rotating so that they wouldn't get overheated or anything. And the space heater that was on was the one that he had turned down, and I didn't notice. And the pipe busted, and it was like, okay, am I going to make my flight today? Am I not? It was a mess.
Yeah.
But we had zero water damage.
Wow.
Because, I don't know how long it was running, and it was running hard, but it all went under the subfloor over to the drain.
Wow.
So it was like lifesaver. Time on that.
Yeah. It's like you having your own little French drain in your basement.
Yes, that was, it's also between putting studs up along the concrete walls. We primered the concrete. So basically, you were talking about with so that way it's kind of sealed up and preventative. And then we had it all studded in, and we did the insulation. And so we didn't have that basement damp feel, which was great. It's cooler than the rest of the house, but it wasn't that
old,
icky, damp,
yucky stone.
Like the basement I grew up in. With
more like a cellar or something. That feel. And that leads me to another point too, is that if you are remodeling your unfinished basement, this is my opinion, you probably need to check with your remodeling company, but there's been different philosophies of whether to put that insulation directly against, the concrete wall or stone, whatever. But there's a lot of people that believe you should build that framing out and built, you actually almost have like an air flow behind it. You see what I'm saying? So then you have your insulation's not directly on the actual concrete. It's really against the wood, because it, that if that insulation, that, the pink insulation, it's definitely porous. And see, the more porous a material is, or semi-porous, the more apt mold is going to grow on it. So
See,
that's
our
just
inspector didn't say when we did this, we had all the inspections done and whatnot. Because if you don't have the inspections done and then there's a problem, then your homeowner's insurance will say it wasn't up to code because you didn't have your inspections and not cover it. So we were like, oh, we're not going down that road.
Yeah.
So we're doing our inspections. But yeah, he was the one that said we had to insulate. He was, but he didn't say anything about not going right up against the concrete. But
I know there are different philosophies of it, and I don't know the codes.
We had the concrete primered and sealed,
right? And that would help. Definitely.
That might have been part of the difference.
Yeah. So it's just a lot of things to think about. I'm trying to think of anything else that I haven't thought of yet.
In the basement?
I think we've covered about everything. I'm trying to think, because we get so many just, water jobs based on mishaps. A lot of it too, if you're a new home buyer and your house has a sump pump and you're not used to listening, is it running? Because you just don't know. So in times of heavy rains, it's important that you are listening. Do you hear the sump pump? I mean, sometimes like our house is, I don't even know why we have a sump pump, because we have a walkout. Like it never runs because there's no reason
all the time.
See, but you just don't know, because you could be on like a lot that just could have had like a lake underneath it at one time, or a spring. You don't know. So, but the whole thing is, you need to be listening. Is that sump pump running? And then if it isn't, then go down and see, is there water backing up? Or, possibly it just doesn't need to run. Or it's always a good idea too, because water is running out and away from your house. But also, you should also periodically, especially in times of dry weather, is pour water, a bucket of water into your sump pump and make sure it's working. And then they can also dry out and just fall apart because out of just misuse.
And sometimes they wear out.
Oh, they just wear out, or you need to have a backup battery on it. Yeah, I mean, it happens.
We have replaced our sump pump once.
Yeah.
And we upgraded it so it pumps the water out a lot faster. So when it does run, it doesn't run as long, and it's more energy efficient, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But when you were talking about the sump pump, when we finished our basement, we've got cabinetry all along those walls, and in that corner where the sump pump is, we have a cabinet that you can, a section that you can pull out so that you can get down to the sump pump. Now it is built up off the floor. It is, so it's not, and the sump pump's down in there. So there is a lot of air there, but it is covered. And it is basically got a cabinet on top of it.
Yeah.
Just like,
well, I would just periodically check it. I mean, there's no guarantees that you're going to get mold, but it's just something that you need to be aware of and check it out every now and then. Or if you start smelling, ooh, something smells moldy, go check that out. Maybe it just needs to be cleaned. And speaking of mold, like if you just have areas like, let's say your sump pump cabinet's getting moldy, or whatever, the best way to clean mold at home.
I was just going to ask you that.
Yeah, everybody always goes, well, I put bleach on it and it just keeps coming back. And I'm like, because bleach is like the last thing that you want to use to clean mold, because bleach is primarily, a large percentage of bleach is water, and water always contributes to the mold growth. And so that you definitely don't want to do. It doesn't get rid of the root system. So what you want to do is use like borax in water cleaning solution, a vinegar in water cleaning solution. You could even use hydrogen peroxide, like from the drugstore. When we clean for mold, especially in unfinished basements, our primary product, and we do this a lot in like attics too, is we use a professional hydrogen peroxide, and it's like
a higher concentrate.
Oh, it's like 18 to 22%. Like you have to be in full PPE. Like it will kill about anything, but it's pretty brutal, but it works really good. And we use it fire jobs, to get rid of smoke, odor. We use it on biohazard. We use it for mold. But yeah, as a homeowner, you wouldn't have the proper PPE. You have to have full face respirators, but you can use the drugstore because the EPA recommends that homeowners can clean like areas of 10, I think it's 10 square feet or less of mold on their own. So usually it's not going to be a big area. And if it's larger than that, then they recommend that you hire a professional. So yeah, just use the little hydrogen peroxide, little brown bottle from Walgreens, what have you.
A lot of good uses for that stuff.
Yeah. And then use dish soap and water solution. So just anything just to clean that mold off. And then place maybe a fan on it to dry it out really well, or set a dehumidifier next to that area. And never, ever, if you have something that's moldy in your home, don't ever blow a fan on that, because you're just blowing mold spores all over your house. Caution to
So when you say
homeowners.
get some air on it, you mean like open the cabinet door so it's not closed
Once it's
in?
clean, yeah, once
Once
it's
it's
clean, you can put airflow on it to help facilitate drying, because you want to dry it out, get the moisture out of it, get it clean, dry it out. You should always run a dehu in your basement in this area of the country. I think March through October, because it's just so humid here, especially in an unfinished basement that you don't have maybe like your air conditioner going. Like in a finished basement, normally you have your AC going, and you know what I mean? So, but those are just some things, words to the wise to heed, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to think of anything else that I possibly would have missed. Your attic. Oh, well, let me go into the attics. And most people, when they're looking at a house, don't climb up into an attic, because a lot of times to get into an attic, you got to go through that little square up in a closet. You have to have a ladder. When I used to climb up in attics,
I put in a pull down ladder and an attic fan, and I've floored a lot of our attic and insulated it. And
it's not easy getting up there though.
It's much easier now
with the pull down ladder.
With the pull down ladder, it's much easier than hauling the big ladder upstairs so that you can go in through the little.
And I don't know how grown men fit in that, because I barely fit in there. But you get up in the attic and there's a whole host of things that can go wrong, and you can get mold growth in an attic.
And silverfish, because silverfish love their feeding ground is that insulation that they've blown in on the floor. Yeah, which is real. You've got to be very, very careful, because there's usually not a light up there, and you usually can't see the joists to make sure that
and you step down onto that insulation, you're going to crack that ceiling down below. I did that.
My daughter still talks about.
Tapped my foot. And I was like, oh no! Sure enough, I cracked the ceiling. We had to repair it.
My daughter still talks about coming home from school and seeing Papa's leg.
Yeah,
because he'd fallen through the attic ceiling. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're like balancing on the joist. Like a lot of times, we're up there, working, and you're you have a backpack, a HEPA back on you, and you've got airless sprayers. So yeah, we have to lay down, makeshift flooring, because you'll be like a trapeze artist up there.
Well, there's nothing to hold on to unless you put some boards up, along the attic framework. There's nothing to hold on to, really.
No. So. But the things that cause mold in attics is, well, number one, a roof leak, of course, where water gets in. But what we commonly see is where builders, and this was common in the 90s out south in Overland, Johnson County, where these builders would take the vents from like a dryer, showers, and then they would take it up into the attic, but they wouldn't like string it up to the actual vent. So meanwhile, you had hot, moist air being pumped into the attic, which, there's not a lot of airflow in the attic. And you have extreme cold and hot temperatures. Yeah. So that can cause mold. So make sure that those venting are actually going to the actual vents up in the ceiling. Another thing we see is too much insulation, and it's covering up, because you have to have, like, I don't know what they call it, the soffits or the openings, like every, I don't know, so many feet around the attic for airflow. And so if you have those all covered up with the insulation, then air's not getting in. So,
well, and you shouldn't cover up the vents that are on the outside of the attic either.
Yeah.
So the air can get through.
Yeah. So that's just some things to take into account that can cause mold growth in an attic. And that's very expensive, because I'll tell you what, when you're a company like us that goes in to clean an attic, that is not a fun day.
Oh, I bet not. It was a lot of it. You can't stand up straight in most of it. That doesn't help.
No, it's hot. I mean, my first mold job was the hottest day of July. We were in oh my Lord, and you're in full Tyvek. I mean, you are sweating, full, all your gear on, and you're up in this attic.
And heat rises, so the attic is warm anyway.
Yeah, and then it's just not comfortable. I mean, you're walking on makeshift flooring. You're trying not to step down into like the insulation and crack the people's ceilings. Then you got to do ceiling repairs for the homeowner. You crack their ceiling
and potentially get hurt.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just not a fun day. So and we charge more for that because it's more dangerous than an average mold job. It's uncomfortable, it's tedious, or worse yet, crawl spaces. Should I just go on and make this even worse?
Crawl space. Well, one thing about the attic before we switched to crawl spaces, we did have one leak in our attic, but it came from the guttering that was over the awning over the front door. The guttering had gotten clogged up, so water wasn't draining, and instead of the water going down over in the side, because it was wintertime, it had iced up.
Oh,
and so
an ice dam.
It came back up into the attic because of that, and so there's this nice little. Or there was this nice, we got it fixed, but there was this nice little stain in the upper level of the foyer, one of those 2-story high.
Well, that's called ice damming, and that's a whole nother topic. And that's where, you have, it's really cold outside. It's real common up in like northern states that are cold, like Minnesota, Wisconsin, where they're cold longer and all the time. But what happens is that water builds up, like in case of your home, but then you've got the warmth from the inside of the house. So it starts melting that ice back here. And then it just, of course, it's going to make its way right into your wall or your ceiling or what have you. And next thing you're like, where is that water coming from?
Between the ice and the debris that was in there, the water couldn't go anywhere else.
Yeah. So it just comes right in the house.
Yep.
Oh, my dude. So and then crawl space.
Crawl space, yes.
Crawl spaces, and most houses don't have crawl spaces. Thank the Lord above these days.
My dad's does. It's an old house in Salina, but it's
the older the house, usually the worse the crawl space. I mean, some crawl spaces, they are not, talk about a long day or so, a few days when you're working in a crawl space, because just to get in and inspect them is not fun. Because a lot of times you have to crawl through a little window well. And then you're down there like literally squatting or on your knees or army crawling. Because some are like only this tall, and then you're down there looking for mold. And then you're always kind of worried, is there a critter down there?
Snakes were the first thing that would come to my mind, but other critters as well.
Yeah. The first time I got into a crawl space, I would
not do well.
Yeah, it is not fun. And I thought, okay, there better not be a possum or something down here, because you can't get out fast.
No,
you're basically kind of just trapped down there for a while. You could try to get out fast, but it's just not that easy.
Those little critters can move a lot faster than we can in that amount of space.
Yeah. But I was looking around my flashlight. I didn't see anything. But long story short, those are really expensive to have done too, just because it is an unpleasant job and not fun. A little bit dangerous, and there's some crawl spaces we can't even get into. So that's a whole nother thing. If you're buying a really old house and it's a crawl space and a lot of times they have the heating units in these. I don't even know how they do repairs, because some of these crawl spaces you can't even get into them. Really old houses. It's thank goodness they just don't do those much today. But just something to take into consideration. It's just one extra thing.
No house with a crawl space.
Yeah,
I want a basement. I want the master on the main level, because these knees are. Yeah, I want to minimize up and down the stairs and whatnot.
Yeah. So I think I've given enough information to scare the home buyer off. And I don't even know. Should we even buy a house? This is scary. No, seriously. Home is one of your biggest investments that you can make a lot of money on. You just need to approach it like any other investment, and know what you're getting into.
So other than mold inspections that you've talked about, are there other things that I could call you up and to come in and come do an inspection for me? I
Well,
mean,
we do.
when I find someplace, can I call you? And
Yeah.
can I
Well,
call
I
you?
mean, theoretically, I mean, you could hire us to walk around and look for signs of water damage. I mean, because that's what we do. I mean, we come in and we know what to look for, and that helps. It helps us if we're looking at buying houses because we know the signs.
Yes.
And a lot of times people try to be tricky and paint over stuff, but I'll tell you, you can try to cover it up and fool people, but long story short, I mean, you're probably going to be found out because if somebody's really looking. Now, if you're not looking, you probably could be fooled,
Mhm.
But I will tell you, if you try to paint over mold, that's only going to last for 2 or 3 months because it's going to just eat its way back through that paint. So, other things too, we do asbestos testing. We do not do asbestos, cleanup or abatement, but we can come in and test because I'll tell you, the older the home, the more chances you have for asbestos in your home. And that may not seem like a concern to you. And, but if you start doing home repairs yourself, drilling into like plastered walls, old, ceilings, that could be full of asbestos and could be dangerous to your family. So, before you start doing any home projects on your own, you might want to look into some testing just to keep your family safe. We do that. But I mean, that's kind of what the inspections we do. It would be mold inspections, testing, asbestos testing, but the rest of our work is mitigation. So we come in when something bad has happened in your home, whether that's water backup, of course, mold, we've already talked about that. If you have a fire, we are a full service restoration contractor. We can come in and handle really everything that needs to be done in your property. We come in and do the walkthrough with the adjuster to assess the damages, look at what the source was. We can do board ups, tarping, because you need to secure your home once you've had a fire. We can move all of your contents, furniture, textiles, electronics out of your home. We have a huge 15,000 square foot facility that we basically move your house to our office and warehouse, and then we store it, and then we clean it, and then we package it all back up and store it until you're ready to move back into your home.
Wow.
Yeah, and then
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. If you don't realize all the stuff that you the house
well, I'm
fire,
packing up the house right now, mostly by myself, and it's like, I mean, I have a few friends helping, but yeah, like that's a lot.
Yeah, and that's what we do. Is we have a big box truck. Basically we act like as a moving company, and then we do the mitigation, which gets rid of the smoke damage and the soot, and then we also can even go on to handling the repairs and the build back to get your house back to normal. I mean, when you have a major house fire, you're probably going to be out of your house 6 to 9 months to a year easily. And speaking of even like water damage repairs, I mean, we try to do those really quickly because people are not planning on this mishap. They just want their lives back to normal as quick as possible. Mm-hmm. And then speaking of lots of stuff, we also do, hoarder clean outs too. We've definitely gone in and moved, or people that have water damage, or they have a house full of stuff. When you have a house full of just stuff everywhere, the thing is we can't come in and do our work because
you can't get around it.
We can't get our equipment in. We can't extract the water. So if you have way too much stuff in your house, we're going to have to actually bring a pod on site or haul it off to our warehouse so that we can even get in there and get the water extracted and get your house dried out. Because if you don't do that, you're gonna have mold growth. But on all of your stuff and your house itself, Yeah,
because you can't clean. You can't clean if you can't get to it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, and that's a lot of times too. If you call into Sage and I got water damage, and Patty, who answers the phone, she's going to ask you, did you have many contents? And a lot of times people go, oh no, we don't have too much, and then we get there, we're like, nah.
Too much in mine are not the same. Yeah.
I think we're going to need to get our box truck over here. But people just don't realize that, we just can't do our work, unless we have a work area,
right,
to get everything properly dried out. But yeah, we do a wide variety of work. We do biohazard. That's the situations where usually it's an unattended death or maybe a suicide. So we come in and we do those kind of cleanups. We do biological decontaminations. We have a lot of stories here at Sage. We help a lot of people with a lot of different situations here.
Yeah, wow. I had no idea. I was thinking, okay, there was a fire, there was water damage, there's mold damage, okay. There's a lot more to it. Just
Yeah.
that.
Well, yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, why do you guys do what you do? Like, oh, it's such hard work. And you're right, it is. We have really physically demanding work. We have crews that, work so hard every day to help people get their lives back on track. And the whole thing, like in our business, is you have to really truly love helping people, because a lot of times when we respond, they're at some of their worst, scariest moments in their life involving their home. And you gotta,
that's one of your basic security things is, because if those basic needs aren't there, everything else just kind of falls apart. And housing is one of
your
those.
Baby.
And well, and it's a huge investment. You probably still have may still have a mortgage to pay. And it's like, okay, well, now not only did this stuff happen, but where am I going to live? How am I going to, all this stuff is now turned on its ear. And
well, you have a house fire. You're going to have to go live in probably like a hotel or rent an apartment for a while. And that leads me to another really important another piece, especially if you're a new home buyer. Make sure that you've got a really good insurance agent who's going to make sure that you're properly covered. Because if you don't have enough coverage for your contents, your furniture, or especially if you buy a house with an unfinished basement and you go in and do like a big $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 remodel of your basement, and you don't tell your insurance agent to add on coverage for that.
Covered.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quoting, but I'm just saying
coverage to
you may not have the proper
right.
So if you go in and you just think, oh, I don't like my unfinished basement, let's do it up right, but make sure you call your agent and let him or her know, because if you don't have that coverage, you may have to do that all out of pocket. I'm just saying, we see a lot. Or make sure you have enough. Actually, too, if you buy an older home and then you have a house fire and then you have to bring it all up to code, and you don't have, I think there's actually, my son was telling me there's a special code insurance coverage. So that, let's say you have a house built in 1940 and it burns up in a fire, and then the wiring, that's super expensive. Plumbing, all that has to be brought up to code, and you don't have that coverage, you may have to pay for that out of pocket. So it's just a lot of stuff that, and don't pass up on that sump pump or drain backup coverage, because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to pay the extra, I don't know, $80 a year. But I'll tell you what, it's worth that extra coverage to have that sump pump rider and then the drain backup, because I can guarantee you an average water loss is easily $2,500, easily. And that'll come out of your pocket if you don't have that coverage. So just a lot of things that people need to be aware of. We are kind of in a scary business now I think of it. I feel like I'm always scaring people.
So hopefully everybody's not totally scared off after this.
No, I got to go. I'm not going to buy a home.
Is most of the, and I know this is a wide open question here, but if somebody needed to call and have you help with some repairs from fire damage, water damage, whatever, is that typically something that is covered fully or partially by homeowners insurance, or is that something they have to make sure to add on, kind of like you're talking about with the sump pump and the backup?
Yeah, no, that's going to be standard coverage, because the insurance carrier wants to protect your home. I mean, you have to have it, but you definitely need to go over, the value, because I mean, even in rising home prices, let's say we just bought a new villa last year, and right now with the price of wood has gone up like crazy. The villa we bought is selling now for $80,000 more. So let's say we had a fire, we came home today and we had a fire, it could cost us an extra $100,000, right?
Just
because of the cost of materials. So some things, it's just really hard to kind of plan for everything, because we don't control the economy, obviously, and other stuff going on in our world. But yeah, it probably once a year, it's a good idea to talk to your insurance agent and have a one-on-one with them, because we all have life changes. Maybe you bought some expensive jewelry that you need to make sure you've got coverage on that. And always take pictures of all your furniture and keep your receipts, and you should take pictures of all your stuff, because you have a house fire. Then you may say, "Why have this expensive such and such?" And they're like, "Oh, well, I don't." You just have to prove what you have. So you just need to be on top of it. I would, and I'm definitely not an insurance, professional. We deal with a lot of insurance, companies, but we have just learned some things along the way when we go in to help people. But yeah, your coverage is going to be standard. It's never going to cover mold normally. I will tell you that, unless there's you might have extra mold coverage, some mold riders, but very rarely does it cover mold. So let's say, I'm giving you a worst case. So let's say you go on a trip to Europe and you're gone for like, I don't know, 2 weeks, a month, and you don't have anybody watching your house. So then meanwhile, the pipes burst or the sump pump backs up or what have you, and your house is flooded. So then nobody calls anybody. Then you come home all happy and relaxed from your trip, and you walk in, like, my house is raining and it's full of molds.
It's been growing for 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Yeah. So sometimes they can get you for you were kind of abandoning your property, like you didn't have somebody watching it, or you can maybe these days there's all kinds of technology to have cameras in your house. Mm-hmm. There's technology to see if there's water, pipes burst. There's all different types of stuff. So I would look into investing in that too, because you don't know if it's full of mold, they may not cover that. You need to really have somebody checking on your property while you're gone is always a good idea. Just better safe than sorry. I'm just saying, when it comes to your biggest investment. I could go on and on telling scary stories. You're like, Stephanie, I gotta go because my audiences can't handle this anymore. Well, gosh,
maybe we should have done this for October, right before Halloween or something,
But remember, in a mishap, we're just here to help you out. That's what we're here to do. We're just here to help any way we can.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I've got to get to another show here at noon, but I so appreciate you coming by.
This has been great. I appreciate it. Very informative and perfect timing for me.
I know.
So
you're like, Stephanie, can you come with me and look this out?
Oh, you'll be getting a phone call. You will be getting a phone call, pretty much guaranteed, or a LinkedIn message or something like that. So
meet me here at 1:00 at this address. So no, I'd be happy to help. Well, it's been so much fun, and I hope that I didn't scare off the new home buyers out there, because jump right in. It's fun. It's your biggest investment. All right.
Hey, thanks for joining us for Financial Fix. Hope to see you next week.
Bye.